This episode will air as a dual release on Roster Music Club's podcast, as well as Moontraveling podcast with Aaron Sprinkle and Matthew Schwartz. After hearing this episode, God himself will condition your heart to join the rostermusic.club and as well as be a patron of the Moontraveling podcast. Links in the show notes. Don't resist the Lord.
Because especially at that time in that scene in Seattle and all that, I could see them kind of seeing us as sellouts a little bit. And I kind of felt that. I definitely did not see us as polished. That is for damn sure.
If you're not growing, if you're not changing, but if you're not growing, you're changing, like, what are you doing? So, like, of course he should be trying new music and trying new things. And
I didn't see us as particularly driven, or and I don't mean anything negative to. I love Matt Johnson, and I always thought they were cooler than us. All those bands, they were more cred and cooler, especially in that era. It was like Blenderhead, Don't Know, Soul Food, MXPX, Oral Lou. Maybe that's. I've never really thought about this until right now, so I'm just sort of thinking about it. But I had a lot of resentment towards Oral Lou for a lot of years, and we broke up because I quit the band.
I will say, personally, I think that there are things that should be universal. Like if it was up to me, the whole emo screamo thing should have never happened. That was terrible and awful. Like, if you can't sing, you should not be a singer of a band. I'm not a fan of Thursday. I think that guy's one of the worst singers that's ever happened. He's flat like 90% of the time. But there are people that love that band and love what they do. And who am I to say that they aren't good? Because clearly they've changed lives and spoken to people. So, like, what the fuck do I know?
I'm able to clearly see just how everything in my life has been so wonderful and such a great experience, and it's made me who I am. It means a lot to me. I still have literally no idea how any of it happened. It does seem like I'm almost watching another person's life from outside, because it seems so long ago and so far removed from who I am today. Now, I'm trying to slow everything down by being present, being in the moment, and
It's episode 5 of Roster Music Club's podcast, alongside Moontraveling podcast listeners. Welcome aboard.
A lot of you guys have heard me talk music tons. Many of you know the special heart Dave Bazan holds in my heart. He's my favorite songwriter. Many of you know how much I'm into hip-hop. My love for this indie emo band, Jejune, old school, late 90s, and how I love Jimmy Eat World Clarity, but probably not as much as Sunny Day Real Estate's How It Feels to Be Something On, but both of them in my top 5 albums for sure. Well, one of our guests today, and we have 2 amazing ones, is Aaron Sprinkle. And in putting this episode together, I realized he's got to be one of my all times. Given his work on the Oral Lou albums, those first 2 releases are 2 of my favorites, and that 6 straight EP, holy cow. His solo stuff, especially Ephemere by Rose Blossom Punch, which would be in my top 20 albums easily. So, Mount Rushmore of the Christian alternative scene, Aaron Sprinkle belongs in the consideration. Life's crazy, man. You throw in art, it's even crazier. I'll tell you some goofy stuff, man. I shed a tear or 2 putting this episode together, just the emotions of running through old songs, recognizing how far life has taken me, being with 3 other guys that have learned some things that simply aren't learnable without the years and years of day to day, day after day. I'm super happy to have met Matthew Schwartz alongside seeing Aaron Sprinkle. You'll learn that Matthew's a fellow Aaron Sprinkle music fan, but also he is very much an unbelievable songwriter and singer as well. I'm a bit in shock, actually, that I've never heard him once and ever listened to his music. I'm excited to catch up on a lot of listening. It's 4 dudes, including my brother Jared, talking about that one thing we love from all different perspectives, those of artists and the consumers of the art. It's that thing we love called music. Pretty sure you're going to like this one. Reminder to check out the Roster Music Club. It's $10 a month for membership. You're missing out on live music, live hangouts, constant music chatter. You can try it for 1 month for free. This summer, we're doing EP Wars. We took 16 submissions and entering them into a Sweet 16. I've got my money on Christopher Simpson of Mineral, his band Zookeeper. That is my all-time favorite EP. And so is another one of his, a band called Gloria record. That one's entered. We've got EPs from Starfire, Poor Lou, Rose Blossom Punch, Seville, Jimmy Eat World, Get Up Kids. We'll see who is the reigning EP champion. Thank you guys who've already joined. We look forward to meeting you, listener, and welcoming you into our little music tribe. Now it's me, big brother and hero Jared Svendsen, Aaron Sprinkle, and Matthew Schwartz. Matthew, you and I have been texting one another, talked once. We don't know each other well, and musically the same. Like, I'll tell you more about this later, but I've got a lot of questions for you. And man, I've checked out, is it Pacifico? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
I don't know how, and it's happened to me twice since we started this music club, because I'm in just drowning in this old school Christian alternative music scene back in the day. Now I've obviously broadened my music listening, but I had never heard of Kevin Robinson of Viva Voce.
Oh, he's great.
Just had never even heard of him. Like, it just all of it
Wow.
just slid through me. So same with you, Matthew. I was asking Jeremy Gold from Rumors Are True. Okay, tell me which albums do I start with and all that. So I'm super. But and hey. I will say, though, that there's some people in the club who don't even know Flesh for Ears and Flesh for Eyes, Materia. I mean, so I'd say that's probably the most grievous sin not to pick up on sin disease. I've got to ask you, Aaron, you've met a billion people. You're in the music world. Like, do you place me at all? Do you know who I am? Because you may not have put. Okay, so we have, unfortunately, not unfortunately, we fortunately have mutual friends. Unfortunately, some of those relationships went south, but those guys, we don't need to get into all that because it's not what this episode's about. But when those guys got signed to Tooth and Nail and they started talking to like Aaron Sprinkle and all these, it was so neat, man. These guys joining Tooth and Nail later in the game. And I got to meet a lot of y'all, had a lot of y'all on Bad Christian and everything. But an interesting question came up in the club. We had a top 10 discussion of the first 100 Tooth and Nail releases. Oh. And my brother asked me, he said, hey, man, if Sin was on Tooth and Nail, would that have made your top 10? And I'll be honest with you, I did not bat an eye. I said, number one by far. That was my number one favorite album for the longest time. So yeah, my number one album out of the first 100 releases was Rusty Slick Shoes. And so it was easy. I was just like, oh yeah, I like Sin better than Rusty Slick Shoes. Last thing I'll say, just to kind of give Matthew a full rounded picture of who he's talking to when it comes to this Christian music alternative scene. I was very proud of myself. We were sitting with Brandon. Is it Brandon Ebel or Abel? Ebel. So I was sitting there with Brandon, Matt, and Toby for Bad Christian. And I'll never forget when Brandon just pretty much stopped and he looked at Matt and Toby and he said, hey, where'd you get this kid from? Because all the random stuff that I had lodged down in there. Anyway, man, it's awesome. It's great. I've got tons of territory I want to get into, and I know we won't be getting into them all, but here's 5 quick questions for y'all. They're all musically related. And by the way, Jared, you're meeting Aaron for the first time, or maybe not. I don't know.
I am.
Hey, Jared.
And then Matthew, Jared, even though we're meeting basically for the first time too.
Hello there. How's it going?
Matthew. But here's 5 questions. I think there's 5 of them. And if you don't have enough listening experience, then you can just say, I pass on that because I don't really care or don't really know these bands. But I tried to go as just absolutely preposterous with the pairings. All right. But I call these little popcorn questions. Who do you like better, Holy Soldier or Jacob's Trouble?
I have never listened to either one of those bands.
Holy Soldier.
Jared?
Jacob's Trouble.
Okay, that's what I would have thought. But man, Last Train is a damn good album. All right, Dakota Motor Company, Into the Sun on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to say 7 when I think of my greatest albums of all time.
When I was 14, it was a 9, but now it's a 6.
What'd you say when it came?
When it came out, it was a 9 for me. But now I've listened to it in the last, and I cringe a little bit. It's a 6.5, 6, 7, 6.75.
Yeah, see, I listen to stuff in context, so I probably would answer that question very similar to how you just answered it. But but I take into the nostalgia big time. So, and I bet you that's from a fan perspective, artist perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What you just gave me. That'd be my guess. Jared, 1 to 10, Into the Sun.
Which one? Is that the first or second
That's
one?
the first one.
Yeah, American flag thing.
I'd say 7.
Okay. Aaron?
Pass.
Somebody knows Peter King, maybe.
I met him once. He was nice.
I actually reached out to try to get him on. I'd really love to hear kind of the Dakota Motor Company story, because I only know that band from, I guess, MTV. What was that, Sandblast? And then those 2 albums, really.
Yeah.
All right, Kinetic Faith or Snakes in the Playground? And Matthew, I'm curious, are you like, what in the hell are you talking about now, dude?
Okay, I don't know what Kinetic Faith is. Is that also Bride?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother was a huge Bride fan. So the first drummer I had in Pacifico, the way we met, we were in high school together, and I had worn my brother's shirt for Snakes in the Playground, and like I was aware of who they were, but I didn't really listen to them much. But the shirt had cool artwork, so I wore it, and he stopped me in the halls. He's like, "Oh my god, you know this band?" And I was such an asshole. I was just like, "They're." I don't know who they are. This is my brother's shirt. They're all right, kind of thing. And he felt so dejected because he like went on a limb to be like, dude, someone else knows this band. But yeah, I think out of the 2, that's the only one that I have any kind of history with. So Snakes in the Playground.
Yep. Yeah, I love both of those albums. Not albums that I listen to a lot, but out of that glam era, I can go back to those 2 albums and be like, yeah, I really actually still like this. Jared, do you have a favorite out of those 2? My guess would be Snakes.
Yeah, I would say Snakes in the Playground. I listen to that so much. So
yeah. Aaron, do you like Bride?
No. My brother is a huge fan of all that. So I just was never.
You never were
into
into metal.
Yeah, metal.
Gotcha.
Not really. There was a couple bands from that era that I liked, but I wasn't like, when I was that age, I wasn't like, oh, this is shit.
Right.
I just didn't care about it. Yep. I just didn't listen to it. It wasn't like I thought it was stupid. I just didn't. My brother was obsessed with all that stuff. I mean, he probably would, be mad at me for my answer, but I don't care.
Tapped into that metal scene, first of all, were you obligated by your guardians to just listen to Christian music? Did you abide by those laws? Like, what were you constrained by? Because I was a rule follower, so I listened to only Christian stuff. I was getting in trouble for listening to secular music, but what were you listening to then?
Okay. So I was not...
Oh, we lost.
What about you, Matthew?
I think what happened is that Aaron started talking about how he didn't listen to Christian music, and God said, nope.
That was God.
Yep.
That was God.
He said, no, thank you. Yeah, we very much were a Christian-only household. My brother and I used to watch MTV illegally and have a blank cassette and record songs that we knew that we'd have it ready, and we're like, what's next? Oh, I love this song, and we record that, that kind of thing. But yeah, we loved Christian music. We Newsboys and DC Talk were kind of where we started, and then my brother John is 2 years older than me, so like we were close in age, and he kind of led the charge on what we listened to and stuff. He was very much more into metal and hardcore and those kind of things. I was very much more into probably what Aaron would say, more melodic kind of stuff. The only other music I heard was my mom was into oldies, so when we were in the car with her, we would listen to oldies music and such. But yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the first bands I got into was Poor Old Lou, which was the band Aaron was in, and that's when I was like, who is this? Like, because that was much different than the metal and hardcore stuff my brother was listening to, where I was like, okay, I can get down with this because it was melodic, and I think that's what I was looking for.
That's kind of neat. So Poor Old Lou sounds like maybe what Striper was for me. just kind of like an entryway of, oh, wow, there's good music out there where these guys are singing about God. Like there's good stuff out there. Jared, I kind of made this question more for you. I did want to, my hunch would be that Aaron would be able to answer this. And I think, Matthew, are you hardcore, heavy music or any of that stuff? Did you ever get into that?
No,
okay, so Jared,
occasionally, but not really.
Yeah. So Jared, this one's mainly for you. The Hope That Lies Within or Heart in Motion by Amy Grant. It's a random pairing, but I want to know which one you like better. And did I pick a good hardcore album to compare with Heart in Motion? Because I know you like Heart in Motion.
Yeah,
that's just not a serious comparison.
It's a super unfair comparison. I mean, I think what was most influential in my life was probably Heart in Motion, just because I just listened to that in a really intense time in my life in high school, over and over and over again. So it seeped into my subconscious, and it's kind of a part of my fiber of my being or whatever. Musically, definitely, I would say focused, but something about that album and that period of, my life kind of frozen in time, I would say Heart in Motion.
What were you listening to, Aaron?
What year was that?
Probably mid-90s, right?
Wait, which question were we on?
We were talking about what he was listening to. Was he?
You were asking me about the two Bride records, and then you were asking me if I was limited to listening to Christian music only, and I don't know what you heard. I talked a lot before I realized I wasn't on anymore.
I'm thinking late 80s, early 90s. So in that era, Jared had helped us discover the Choir, LSU, Blonde Vinyl, and all of that.
So that
was a big win. I'm sorry, Matthew, what'd you say?
Bride, Snakes on the Playground came out in 91, 92.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, Aaron, what were you listening to?
I was pretty fully secular music at that point. I did still listen to
Gotcha. That's
probably some of the stuff that was more in the scene that I was in, as far as or about to be in with Poor Lou and stuff. But I was listening to I was listening to Nevermind that year and stuff. So but
what's that?
In The Cure, and all that stuff. So
Matthew, was that a joke?
I still had a really, I loved Scattered Few. I loved anything the Choir did. I loved anything Terry Taylor did, Daniel Amos or Lost Dogs or any of that stuff. And I think I even was nostalgic at that point about some of the early 80s stuff that I was raised on, the Randy Stonehill, Larry Norman, Mark Hurd, David Edwards, all that kind of stuff. So I think, but yeah, I definitely, if I was going to listen to metal, I wouldn't have listened to Bride at that point. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so I want to make this known I sometimes have to remind you guys that some of these questions may be super boring for you guys, but us fans, we love it. So thank y'all.
I'm good. It's all fun for me. Yeah.
Hey, so Matthew, give me a little bit of history of Pacifico. You were a big fan of Poor Lou, so it seems like you were in the territory of me. Maybe you were a musician for a super long time, but it seems like you were loving the music before you were a part of this scene. When did you come upon the scene? I researched you on a road trip on the way back home today from Boone, North Carolina. So that's where I first listened to you and all of that. So tell us kind of how you arrived on the scene.
Yeah, I mean, I most definitely was a fan of music before I started playing it. And then my first band was with my brother. He sang, I wrote the songs, and we were doing White Cross covers and stuff like that. And then
the stuff Aaron loves, that Aaron just said he was loving back in that day.
And then we broke up. I don't remember why, but I think it was because we couldn't keep members, the normal shit. And then I had a band in high school where I had another guy that wrote and sang, and I wrote and sang. And so we had our Lennon McCartney kind of thing where he would write and I'd back him up, and I'd write, he'd back me up. And we were very much into grunge and, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, all that kind of stuff. And doing that kind of thing. And then Pacifica started because I was in a third band where I was playing bass and background vocals, and they had asked people to submit music. And every song I submitted, they were like, no thanks. But the drummer was pulling me aside going, I really love your music. I would love to do something with it. And we were big fans of bands like Starflyer. And at that time, I think there's tons of bands that were on Tooth and Nail that all had side projects. I mean, MXPX had Arthur and the Cooties and, all those kind of things. So we thought, well, let's do a side project. And, that way we can do something with this music. But not break up with our band, but it ended up becoming our focus, and we left that band. But yeah, it started from just, you take what you listen to and you compile all together. I think we very much were at the beginning a lot more like rockabilly meets punk meets indie rock kind of thing, and then
it's time to say
found our way through the thing. We're a 3-piece to start because we love Nirvana, and we're like, but they're a 3-piece, and he doesn't play guitar great. I can be a 3-piece, and I don't play guitar great, and so that's kind of where it started, and then since then it's kind of moved and stuff and changed.
Nice. Tell us about the Moontraveling podcast.
Well, I mean, honestly, people had, especially Matt, had been trying to get me to do, Matt Carter, to do a podcast for a long time, and I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth to do, other than the this part of it, to do it.
Yeah.
And I wanted a partner, and Matthew and I don't remember even how the whole thing evolved. It was very organic.
I think
how it happened.
I think I wrote you an email.
Yeah, we just
did. I not? I think I wrote you an email with like a pitch kind of thing, like, hey, you should do a podcast.
Yeah,
and this is what I'm thinking.
I do. So yeah, it just we had become friends and started talking and hanging out a little bit even, and it just seemed natural. I felt like we had a good chemistry, and I trusted him,
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And now you regret it.
And hey, you guys work on that some other time, please.
Yeah.
So
you're not our therapist.
Which is good for y'all, but believe me. Would you put it in the same, because I haven't checked it out yet, would you put it in the same vein of like Bad Christian, life, music, just whatever's going on with you guys? Or it's not like focused on music. It didn't look like it to me.
Yeah,
but music is a part of your life, so it's huge into it.
That's
also.
That's the easiest thing to do on it is music.
Sure. And we said no.
But we have veered, off that path a bit, and but I mean, probably 90% of what comes out of my mouth has to do with music. Yeah. So just the sort of
I had approached him about doing it about him, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Aaron had gotten back to me and said, I'm interested in doing this, but I don't want it to be solely about me and my stories. I think it should, or solely about music. I want it to be about life and our life. And so I really loved that. Honestly, that really spoke to me because I like the structure of we talk about what we want to talk about. So when we come up with episodes, sometimes, it's like we want to do an interview with this person. And it's not particularly that we want to talk to this person about their career in music or whatever. And sometimes it's not even musicians. But we want to just talk to people, have conversations. We want to learn stuff. We had a Sasquatch guy on to talk about Sasquatch because we both are interested in the unknown and what's going on. And we had Stuff Christian Culture Likes come on and talk about that because like that's, down our alley of where we live and such. And then we have had musicians. It's also really cool to have people that, whether it was Ronnie Martin, where like we both know him, but from two different parts of our lives, or like Mike Carrera, where I was just a fan, but he helped them become who they are, and like, so I really love like how we're able to approach this from two different places, not only physically, because he's halfway across the world, but also emotionally and through our life experience, approach things. And it just works. And it's really, really good. We have no limits on what we will or won't talk about. It's just about whatever, I guess, when we have that week, month, whatever, right?
Sweet. All right. Well, I hope this warms Aaron's heart a little bit. I want to get into a little bit of Poraloo territory, given that it's, one of me and my brother's favorites. And I wanted you to hear, and given Matthew that you're a big Poraloo fan, I want to hear your thoughts on this too. This is a conversation that came out with me and my brother, Brian Gray of The Blamed, and then Matt Johnson. And I should just say Matt Johnson and Brian Gray of like 150 different bands. But I thought this was just interesting what they had to say. Did y'all like Poraloo?
So there's a Seattle band, and my band's occasionally played with them. They were sort of like the proest of the pro bands in that scene. It was like they were very polished, like they put on a great show. We were just like, wow, these guys are so good, like they're like real musicians, we were just like punk dudes, I really respected those guys. I mean, I think Aaron Sprinkle's an amazing songwriter. Scott has like a very unique voice, that kind of gravelly voice, you know.
They're playing at potentially some like next level gigs. They weren't really punk gigs or hardcore gigs.
Right.
So when the idea of them in my Tooth and Nail top 10, they were ahead of Tooth and Nail. The concept of like, would Tooth and Nail have happened if it wasn't for Poor Old Lou? I mean, I don't really know the answer to that, but I bet they had a lot to do with all that happening.
Those guys were commenting on how they saw y'all as the professional musicians. Y'all had it dialed in. Y'all were like real deal. They were a bunch of punks. They looked at y'all and they saw that y'all were kind of starting to play shows with, you know, bands that kind of had a little more meaning, I guess, in the mainstream. Again, this is just their perspective of seeing Poor Lou coming on to the scene, but I know it's somewhat of difficult territory to address, given that it's about you and it's some pretty positive feedback. But how do you feel about them saying, yeah, Poor Lou is just better than everybody?
It's interesting because it's positive, but it's also not, because especially at that time in that scene in Seattle and all that, I could see them kind of seeing us as sellouts a little bit because of that. So I kind of felt that a little bit too. So I think that's really illuminating. I definitely did not see us as polished. That is for damn sure. I didn't see us as particularly driven. I mean, we definitely weren't like, you know, Mike Herrera is like, you know, the epitome of, you know, just like hardworking, dedicated, you know. I definitely didn't see us like that.
Yeah.
I feel like we sort of barely made it through everything we did. But and I don't mean anything negative to, I mean, I love Matt is he's just such a great dude. I love him. But Johnson but I always thought they were cooler than us, all those bands. You know, they were more cred and cooler, and like we were, I don't know. It's interesting. You know, we were just doing. We were just doing our thing. You know, it's just literally all we could do.
When you say sellout, you mean that can't be from a musical perspective. You mean that you're kind of leaving them behind a little bit.
I don't know. Maybe a musical perspective. You know, I think maybe we would have. Because a lot of the, you know, especially in that era, it was like, you know, that scene was like Blenderhead, Don't Know, Soul Food, MXPX, Poor Lou. There was a bunch of other bands in that scene. Grandma Train was even in that scene at the time. And, you know, we got signed and did a record in California and, you know, did this stuff with this label. And maybe that's, I've never really thought about this until right now. So I'm just sort of thinking about it. But I do remember, I just remember feeling like we weren't as cool as these other bands.
That's so interesting, man.
So yeah. And, you know, part of it's the genre. We were a little more eclectic musically than some of these other bands. Like, you know, we weren't punk, that's for sure. And, but I don't even know what we were, to be honest.
When Mind Size came out, I definitely kind of had you guys tied into the grunge scene, but I think it's because Old Church Boy was wanting a band that could be his so badly, because I wasn't allowed to listen to anything else.
Right.
I think when Sometimes Sunday came to the scene, that was like, oh, that's really the grunge band. But I always thought of, it may have been Seattle playing tricks on me in my head.
Yes.
Like, well, I guess all those bands out there, but I kind of had it in my head there. Jared, are you surprised about that as far as what Aaron said?
Oh, I'm not surprised about what you just said, but yeah, I'm surprised about what Aaron said for sure. Yeah.
You're not surprised about what Matt and Brian were talking about, but that's interesting.
As being sellouts, yeah, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, I will say this, Aaron, and then I want to hear what Matthew has to say about Poor Lou. But I remember, and I think it was at Matt Carter's wedding, I was asking you questions about Poor Lou, trying not to fanboy too much, but I remember asking you, I remember saying, hey, like when it comes to Poor Lou this and Poor Lou that and Mind Size, and you were very nice about it, but you're like, hey man, it's like, that just seems like an eternity ago. He's like, it's just a world that I don't even really think about. You not mean, and I think you were even willing to engage in the conversation, but that was like a part of your perspective is, I don't even think about this stuff anymore. Has that changed a little bit? Because that's literally been, I guess, 15 years-ish ago. Like, does it mean something to you when someone says, man, Sin is like was my favorite album. Like when you hear someone like me say that, just a random, I mean, I'm not too random. You know who I am, but is that meaningful?
No, you're random.
Yeah, 30 years later. 30.
Yeah. So I've been through a little journey with this, definitely, where I had a lot of resentment towards Poor Lou for a lot of years, and we broke up because I quit the band. And
is that common knowledge ish?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I feel like we talked about that on the Moontraveling. I feel like we talked about
we
that.
had
on the
Poor Lou on.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
Yeah. And then especially when I deconstructed, my first kind of deconversion kind of era was I just had a lot of resentment towards everything to do with anything to do with that. But now I don't feel that way. And then I think also in the fact that I moved back to the Pacific Northwest after being in Tennessee for 12 years, I'm back here. I feel that look a lot more nostalgic. I'm able to clearly see just how everything in my life has been so wonderful and such a great experience, and it's made me who I am. And I think some of that sort of feeling like I need to prove something is just gone. I think part of that's just being old too. And and then the fact that we're getting ready to play a couple shows for the first time in over 20 years. And I just it means a lot to me because I do, however, I still have literally no idea how any of it happened. Like it does seem like I'm almost watching another person's life from outside because it seems so long ago and so far removed from who I am today. But I'm super grateful for it. And, sometimes I'm like looking at that kid and I'm like, what a little asshole. Like he's a better guitar player than I am, like I just feel like I like, how did he do that? And he didn't even know how to enjoy it. He didn't know how to experience it. It just, everything was just like look, happening, and then it's just over. And now, like, I'm trying to slow everything down by being present and being in the moment, and like that was the farthest thing from my mind back then. And also the other thing that I look at is like how much shit happened in such a short period of time back then. I mean, just this crazy amount of stuff in this and I'm like, oh, that's exhausting. It just looks so exhausting. But it's wild. But I love it. I talk to Scott and Nick almost every day now. We have a text going. The only reason my brother's not in it is because he doesn't have a cell phone. But I love it. It's fun. I'm really looking forward to these shows. I think it's going to be the most fun we'll ever have playing shows, honestly, because we don't care anymore about a lot of the stuff that we cared about before. We just want to have fun and have fun with the people that are there and all that stuff. But
there's so many things, man. When you mention not being able to enjoy things, like there are certain things, like I think about Bad Christian, for sure, the biggest podcast I've ever been a part of. And there are certain things during that time that I just wasn't mature enough to enjoy. Like I just couldn't. And I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy any of it. I'm saying that there were some big parts that I could have just taken a deep breath and been like, I just get to be a part of this, period. But just, I mean, you're so much younger. You're so much younger. First half of life, second half of life. First half of life, we're constantly building. We're trying to fill the container. And then basically second half of life, you realize what's the most important. And you're just like, enough of all that shit. I was
going to say, you could argue that life is best appreciated in reverse. The only way you can really appreciate the past is in the future. Like for myself as well, like when I look back on the past, like I was not appreciative of what I had or what was going on. It's only when you're older, when you look back going, damn, I wish I could have done this, or just, if anything, just appreciated what I had or what was going on.
They say that youth is wasted on the young. So
there you go.
Yeah. Matt, what's your professional assessment of Poor Lou?
As a fan growing up and finding out like I think Sin was the first thing I heard. Then I went back and listened to Mind Size, and then from there followed everything as it came out. I mean, yeah, they seemed very professional to me, and they sounded incredible. And even the stuff like Straight Six, which they recorded just themselves, and it does have more of like an indie vibe. Like, still sounded like super thought out, and super well crafted.
Won't you greet this man and hear his words? Maybe an open ear would make him stir. Good a close heart to Saint man.
To be a certain way and such. And for me as a listener, and then of course as I started getting into music, was very much like, this is cool, this is the thing I want to do. I really, you're right, I definitely felt like they were in the grunge kind of area, but I really appreciated and respected the fact that they threw in funk and threw in other, pieces of different music and put what other things in there, because that's, honestly, in retrospect now, I can look at it and go, that's the stuff I love. I love when people take something and make it their own, or add in stuff that's not quote unquote, not supposed to be in there. And I certainly thought they were professional. We've talked about on the podcast several times how apparently they had just signed their contract, and then Brandon approached them about being on Tooth and Nail, and they're like, we just signed a contract, and they just missed out on that, but that they felt more at home with those bands than they did any of the bands on their label, and that makes so much sense, because that is, the scene that they were in. And that also makes sense that when they reunited in, what was that, 2002 something, and did the Waiting album, that it was so perfect that they were on Tooth and Nail, because that's where they should be.
Was that tough, Aaron? Like something taking place so significant that you were a part of, but then there's that, like, the paperwork is different. Like, was that hard at a younger age? I could imagine it being kind of hard.
Yeah, it was super frustrating because Brandon worked at Frontline when we signed to Frontline, and he was a small part of us signing to that label. And then I was down there and staying at his apartment in Newport Beach, and he told me, like, what do you think of the name Tooth and Nail? And then Tooth and Nail happened, and then we were like, shit, that would have been, it definitely didn't say shit back then, but I should have.
I would have been so disappointed in you, man. I would have written you a letter saying, hey, man, on the podcast, dude, I just don't understand. I did that to Toby of Delta Haymax when he said hell in a song. I wrote the guy. Oh my Lord,
my
Jesus.
God, that is hilarious. Yeah, he got so much shit for that. So I have to tell you a really, really quick funny story about that very specific thing. I don't even remember what song it is, but it was one of the songs where Scott Poor Lou just went yell or something like that, and this kid wrote us a letter. And this is the funniest part to me, is he didn't ask. He just said, why did you have to say the word damn in your song? And really gave us like a come to Jesus little thing about, cussing and stuff. And we just thought that was so funny, because we never would have done that ever. Right. But he just thought Scott going "Bleh" was him going damn, which is like the funniest thing. We still talk about it to this day. But it was tough. And then especially like you said, I was kind of part of that whole Tooth and Nail thing at the beginning, especially MXPX and Don't Know and Blenderhead and Sometimes Sunday, and and then, they moved here, and, I've known Brandon for so long, and it was just a bummer. It was similar. 5 Minute Walk sort of adopted Poor Old Lou at the end there too. We kind of like went on tour with some of their bands.
Gotcha.
And, we were not ever on
That's
that
right.
label, but
that's where I saw you guys, was with Black Eyed Siva, and I was in heaven sitting. I was like, I'm sitting next to Nick Barber, talking to Nick Barber, watching Black Eyed Siva. I want to say Plank Eye may have been there too. Would they have been there, or maybe not?
Could have
something wrong.
Could have. I don't. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I definitely saw you guys with Black Eyed Siva, and then I'll say that Jared and I really, really appreciated the humor in that old VHS tape. I don't know if y'all had fun putting that together, but we just really, really, really liked that. We really liked that.
Yeah, that was so fun. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
All right, Aaron, this is from a fellow artist who is a big fan of yours. And he said that on the first Blenderhead and MXPX records, the drum sounds were very similar. I really loved it. What was the mic configuration? Were they done in the same room? How was that sound achieved? If you remember.
Haphazardly.
They were not done in the same room. They were done. Blenderhead was done at a studio that at the time was called John and Stu's, but it was originally Reciprocal, and it was where Nirvana Bleach was recorded, and then later on became the Hall of Justice, which was Chris Walla from Death Cab Studio for a long time. Anyway, bunch of classic records have been done there. And actually, that is a really crazy story of that record. That was technically the first record I did in that era, the Blenderhead record, and it was, I feel like, a month before I did MXPX, or maybe 2 months. But we booked that studio in Ballard, and it's that triangle-shaped studio in Ballard. If you know what I'm talking about, you drive. It's right next to, like, there's a brewery across the street. I don't remember, Hales or something like that. It's across the street. Anyway, and the guy that just worked there, the engineer that just happened to be working there, was Phil Eck. And if you don't know who that is, Google him, and you'll be like, "Holy shit, Phil!" I got to learn all this stuff from Phil Eck that day about how he records drums and stuff. At the time was, and he had just done Built to Spill's Ultimate Alternative Waivers record, which is such a great record. Anyway, and then I did MXPX at Avast, which was owned by the same people. And I probably recorded the drums the exact same way that Phil showed me how he did it. I probably just did the same thing at Avast for MXPX. So that's probably why they sound similar. And then I think I mixed both of those records, which I literally had no business doing. And so they probably sound similar because of that as well. And I may have mixed Blenderhead at Avast, but I don't remember, honestly. But yeah. And I could be wrong about everything I just said because I'm 51 and I don't remember things.
Matthew, did you do any studio work, producing, mixing? Is that something that you do also?
I produce. I don't mix or master or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I produced. I have done the only stuff that I guess you could really, I mean, my own stuff. But I also did. There's a band called The Menders that's on our label. I did their newest album, The Devil's Real. We have a maxi single, 3 songs coming out by Kick Snare Crash out of South Carolina.
Sweet, man.
And
out of South Carolina? Really? Mm-hmm. You know,
Yeah.
I'm in
Greenville.
Charleston. Me and Jared grew up in Charleston. I
Okay.
just drove through. No, I didn't drive through Greenville. I came from that area. That's cool,
Yeah.
man.
Greenville,
well-
and the Menders are in Gastonia, which is right outside of.
That's cool. Well, I had to make the decision, either talking about like indie vocals and doing a deep dive there, or production work. And I'm going the production work route. But I did want to just throw this out there that we started this club as focusing on the Christian alternative scene, because that's what got us into music. But I'm really excited. I don't know if it's going to be the fall or not, but we're starting the Garage, which is going to be a music world with all the conversations based on the lo-fi 90s, emo, so anything from Dinosaur
Cool.
Jr. and Pavement to Mineral, Sunny Day Real Estate. And I really wanted to get into some interesting stuff Matt Johnson was talking about as far as vocals and music, especially
Mhm.
pertaining to Roadside Monument. And,
Mhm.
because I'm the type of guy who vocals are super important to me, but, and I'm putting this in air quotes, they don't have to be good. Like, I don't hear a voice that's not classically trained and be like, "Oh, that sucks." Like, I really love Roadside's vocals. I love Christopher Simpson of Minerals, and these guys aren't
trying to sing. Like, I think what they're doing is extremely talented, especially Chris Simpson. I mean, how he goes
people
through-
that sing correctly have a harder time reaching my heart than people that don't. Like,
that
I'm
makes
not
sense.
saying they can't. Like, some of my favorites are some of the best singers ever, but usually that's a turnoff for me immediately. Like, you got to win me over some other way if you're a quote unquote good singer. So I totally relate to that. Really quick before we move on from this thing, I just wanted to say, I just realized this guitar right here, this black Telecaster, is my 1992 Tele that I bought brand new that has been used on every single Poraloo record ever made, and I've played live at every single Poraloo show ever. So
That's cool.
I thought you guys might think that was cool.
Yeah,
But you're
for
not
sure.
going to play it in September, right?
I am going to play it here, but I'm not going to fly with it.
All right. Well, I want to talk both of you guys some production questions. I talked to for our listeners' sake, most of you would know who this is, but Devin, another old friend of mine who is in Emory, and I just wanted to make sure that I could actually play this clip on there. So again, I'm recounting a story those guys told me like 20 years ago, and this is their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot what the song was, but it was on In Shallows, which you produced the whole thing, right? There was a song where at the end, like it was a great, great song. I should have done a little more homework and actually wrote down the song since I took the time to text freaking Devin. But you would know it because you closed out the song. They were like, we just don't know how to wrap this up. And I think you came up with the vocal deal, but I'm going to play it here because it's so beautiful. I mean, it's one of my favorite parts on an Emory song, and I've said for a long time that, you know, Toby Morell's vocals are some of my favorite vocals, but this song, how it wraps up, you and Devin harmonizing back and forth, and I think you actually even wrote the melodic line. This is like one of the most epic moments of a song, and I think you're like, I'm not sure. But
Ships don't sink if they have wind in their sails, but if the wind fails, is there hope for me? I thought your love was a safe promise you made. Now I am drowning in your shallow sea. I swear to all the waves that toss me away. How can I float on a water that fills my lungs, killing me softly without a
I just wanted to give you props. Like if how I remember them telling that story is accurate and how they told it is, I mean, it's just a remarkable part of that song. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
I do. I just can't
Okay.
remember all the specifics of it or
Yeah.
not. I'm trying to remember, but
Gotcha. Well, that kind of got me started in the whole, just got the wheels turning with production. Not all
Mhm.
bands are looking for that, are they? So you're good friends with these guys. So you probably had a little more of a comfort level to say, hey, I've got a totally brand new idea. And again, you're having a hard time recounting it, but not all artists are looking for that kind of feedback, are they? They just want you to push buttons.
So yeah, there's a spectrum, definitely, and it depends on a lot of factors. Some of them are like, ego or just practicality, and then some of them are like, I guess the older I got and the more mature I got, it was like I'm not going to step in if I don't need to. In fact, getting out of the way is sometimes the most important thing, because a lot of people will, as producers or anything really, will try to get their hands in there so they can just say, I did that. That was my idea, and sometimes that just is how you fuck something up. It's not how you make it better, right? So, and I don't mean it fuck something up in a good way. So like. And it just depends. Some bands wanted me to be in the band. And then some bands wanted me to basically kind of Rick Rubin it. Be like, unless I hear a problem, kind of stay out of the way.
Yeah. Was that kind of a sneaky tactic? Was that sneaky? Like, oh, we want you in the, like, all of a sudden you realize, oh gosh, they want me actually playing on this daggone thing.
Well, those are my favorite. Those are my favorite records to do.
Okay.
And it's either the records that I'm the most proud of objectively, like just later on in life when I look back and just listen to something, they're the records I'm the most proud of being a part of, and that I honestly think they turn out really good. And it's not because I'm some special thing. I think it's just because that's where I really thrive, is in that role personally. where I feel like I have the autonomy to just literally do and flesh out any idea that comes along, and we're all on the same page, and we're all just like firing on all cylinders the whole time, and probably most of the records that I'm known for, as far as just popularity, are records that are like that. Like, I would say the majority of them are. So
Do you and it's funny, just because of the mutual friendship, Matt and Toby's names are coming up so often. But do you, because they told me this and it really helped shape my thinking when it came to interviewing questions. But now I'm just like, I just accept who I am. I'm a fan of the music, so I'm going to ask these sorts of questions. But they would be like, Joey, those questions are so annoying, as far as don't ask artists those kind of questions. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But are these tough questions or annoying? Because I have found that some artists like them. But what are you the most proud of in the production work? Like, I would ask Matt and Toby, what's y'all's favorite Emery album? They're like, all of them. We wrote them. We love them. And I get that perspective.
Yes. No.
Do you have a work that you're most proud of?
For me, the criteria is like, if I can hear a record and listen to it as a fan and love it, then that's going to put it at the top.
Yeah.
It's almost like weird that I was part of it when I listened to it. And, those are records like The Question is definitely one of those records. And Acceptance Phantoms, and I would say the Almost Southern Weather is one of those. I would say definitely Jonesetta Cruel to Be Young is one of those. I just was showing somebody that record yesterday. And Anne Berlin Cities, or Never Take Friendship, or Dead Poetic New Medicines. There's some of these records where I listen, I'm like, oh, damn, that's pretty good. That's, or I'm like, I love, like, some of these records, I love these records. Like, I could just listen to them, like Cruel to Be Young, definitely, or Corey Crowder, Gold in the Sand is another one. I can just listen to that record.
I love Cruel to Be Young, by the way. Love it.
Thanks. But yeah, so those are the records that are my favorite, or Control, that one is definitely, I feel like I just can't believe sometimes that I got to be a part of that record, even though I don't have the credit of what I actually did is not on the liner notes of that record, which I'm still pissed at Dave about. But that's the criteria for me, is if I can listen to it in the same way that I listen to other music that I reach for over and over. And then sometimes I forget that I even did a record. Someone will be like, what about this record? And I'll be like, oh yeah. Or like The Send, or like, that Send record is so cool. If you've never heard it, you should listen to it. But like, these records that I just forget about because I've done so many records, and like I said, I'm old and I forget things. So
yeah. Matthew, when it comes to critiquing art, I think that, especially doing a podcast where it's fans talking about music, like, I really get squeamish when I start giving heavy opinions on music, because I'm like, something that I'm critiquing may be the very thing that they set out to do, because that's what they freaking wanted to do in the song. And just because my ears don't like it, I'm really, really squeamish about saying this was good or this was not good. In fact, I really don't do it unless someone knows, hey, this is in context of a fan talking. Are there things, though, to you guys, like with, I call it the music profession. You guys make money off of music, different levels, but are there things that y'all would just say, no, that's just not good, you just don't do that? Like where's the line of critiquing art and then saying, yeah, it was just bad? Or is it all opinion all the time because it's art?
Well, I mean, let's be real. Anytime you enter anything, a movie, a play, a conversation with somebody, you're coming in with preconceived notion of what you think it is, as well as only able to perceive it through who you are as a person and the life that you've lived. You grew up in a completely different place than I did, with completely different past. The way that you come into, name an album, whatever, you're going to view that completely different than me. We might not be even hearing quote unquote the same song, even though we're hearing the same song. So yeah, I think it's mostly about your own opinion. I will say personally, I think that there are things that it should be universal, but like if it was up to me, the whole emo screamo thing should have never happened. That was terrible and awful. Like, if you can't sing, you should not be a singer of a band. I'm not a fan of Thursday. I think that guy's one of the worst singers that's ever happened. He's flat like 90% of the time. But there are people that love that band and love what they do. And who am I to say that they aren't good? Because clearly they've changed lives and spoken to people. So, like, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, I think I have two things to say about that. One is, so I've had people write reviews or post comments about especially what comes to mind is I did a solo record called Real Life, which was, I think it had one guitar track on the entire album. It was an electronic record, and I had people say things like, it's obvious that Aaron was trying so hard to do something popular, and I wish he would have just done what he loves and did guitars. And while those kind of comments are very entertaining for me to read, they're just wildly wrong. Like, I only do what I want to do. And
I was one of those people.
I believe we all only do what we want to do, but that's a different conversation. I didn't do that record for any reason than that's the record that was in my heart to make, right? And so, which leads me to the next thing, which I think I will always be very fine telling you if I like something or not.
Yeah.
But telling you if something is incorrect is something I just don't feel like I'm at liberty to say. Like, I don't.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There are things that people love, right, that I do not like at all. And it might be I'm indifferent, or I just think it's the most horrific thing I've ever heard. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it, right? It's just not resonating with my emotions. It's not ticking my boxes, right? And so I do think that there is some ska music that is wrong. So I'm just kidding.
I've got a close friend.
It's funny.
I've got a close friend that loves ska, and like, granted, I got into Supertones when they first came out, but it was a very short, relationship. Like I courted them for 2 albums, and then I was done with ska indefinitely.
Jared, this is a theme amongst these Tooth and Nail guys.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I recently am diving. I kind of do this historical deep dive thing. My current historical deep dive is first and second wave ska, and I'm obsessed with both of them right now. They're the coolest thing, especially when you read about the history of them. They're amazing. Third wave ska.
Real quick, I just want to say, Jared did all this digging. For about 3 years you were into this, like just
like the mid to late 90s. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely very late. I mean, I've obviously heard some of the second wave stuff, but I didn't really deep dive into it like I am right now. But I think third wave is kind of what ruined, and it's of course the American iteration of it, really, if you want to be general.
A copy of a copy of a copy
is what kind of ruined it. But there's things on that Fight the System record that I did that would be considered ska in a sense. That,
true,
and
true.
I love that record. I think that I'm very proud of that record, especially considering how young I was. But that was a really fun record to make, and I listen to it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty dope record.
Have you discovered Desmond Decker by any chance?
That name sounds familiar.
I would definitely check out Desmond Decker. He's like my favorite, like first or second.
It's very
artist.
possible that I've heard Desmond Decker in some of the playlists that I listen to in my car when I'm not paying attention to who I'm listening to, but I will seek out some Desmond Decker. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
In a similar vein, I just bought the album called Radio Dread. It's a Radiohead covers done in reggae style, and that's a great album.
Oh, cool. I would like that.
Really
I would very much recommend that.
Have you heard the Radiohead composed piano tracks of their songs?
Is that Christopher O'Reilly?
You're
right.
It's
You're
great.
right. Yeah, I really like that a lot.
I think I maybe heard one of them.
When I heard Aaron, so I think I'm sure you had maybe you haven't released vocal led tracks before that song came out on Sin, and I remember being torn, not whether or not I liked Scott Hunter's voice, because it's just like I don't want to stop listening to Scott Hunter sing on Poor Lou songs, but it was like, where else can I hear this guy sing? Like, it really was like, man, we're missing out on something.
My strength is dead, I hope instead in what will be, in what I'll see. My strength is dead, I hope
I'll tell you that when Ephemera came out, and I think you had solo projects that came out before that, but I don't recall. But when Ephemera came out, I must have been locked on Ephemera and Diary by Sunny Day Real Estate for like 4 solid months. I mean, it was those. It was the actual CDs. I mean, they were just rotating back and forth. But that's kind of where the vocals conversation
That's
was
cool.
in my head was thinking about you singing on that other song, and then the opinions of art from a fan's perspective. I mean, I think y'all would get a kick out of this, but I was listening to Leave Here a Stranger because so many people have told me that's the Starflyer 59 album. I mean, I've got one guy who swears by it. He says it's way better than any of the albums. I just haven't listened to it a lot. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, maybe this is the best Starflyer 59 album. It is unbelievable. And I followed that listening up with the full, I think the only full length Upside Down Room, because somebody had mentioned them, and then I went back and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about them, but I had that old album, and it just hit me. I was like, would at least you guys behind closed doors say, yeah, I mean, Leave Here the Stranger is a better album, or you wouldn't, like, that's the kind of stuff that I don't want to say, but it seems like most musicians would just say Jason Martin is in the middle of his career. Well, now it's probably still, I think it came out in 2001. Upside Down Room, brand new band. I mean, obviously the product of Leave Here a Stranger is better, but is that inappropriate in the artistic sense? Y'all understand what I'm trying to ask? So that's where that came from. But I'm done here, fellas. This has been awesome.
What did you say before that? There was something I wanted to talk about when you were saying something before the whole Starflyer Leave Here a Stranger thing.
Oh, the vocals on Poor Old Lou when I heard you sing for the first time.
I just wanted to say I cannot wait for you to hear the remix of Ephemera. It's going to blow your mind. We just got done mastering it, and I think some people are probably a little bit like, why would you remix it? And honestly, the reason is it did not ever sound how I wanted it to. And part of it was just, I was limited in my ability. And then part of it was that we literally ran out of time. And I think Kip and I mixed that whole album in one day. Mm-hmm. So it just was like very rushed, right? Wow. And so the new mixes, J.R. McNeely mixed it, but he listened to the original of everyone, and he really matched the tone and vibe of the original mixes, but just made them better. And I'm so excited for people to hear it.
Oh, she wants to know, do you remember letting go? We let the hour come steal away the light.
As a fan, sounds great.
I'll tell you this too. It took me damn decade to track down. So Sorry to Disappoint You. Nobody could. And I know now we're in a digital age where you can get that stuff. But I ask people all the time. And I think it was at a Bad Christian conference. Somebody said, "I heard you like Rose Blossom Punch, man. I got you." And he sent it to me in Dropbox. But that's really good stuff too.
Yeah, well, we remixed and re-released that as well. So and that's on Spotify and stuff now. The remixes are, but as far as what you were saying about if something better than something else, this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I tend to generally place everything in the apples and oranges category. Mm-hmm. That is where I tend to generally literally place everything. Like even if someone says, I like Rocky Road better, I think Rocky Road is better than Neapolitan. I don't even like that. I think those are two different things that you're shooting for with those two different ice creams. So I tend to be a little annoyed at people's desire for there to be some victorious thing in these categories where, like, let's pit these two records up against each other and see which one is better. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it has to do with, like, if I like that one right now. That's it. That's all it is for me. Like, if you put two records that I loved in front of me and said, grab the one you're going to listen to right now, that could be different every day of my life. or every moment of my life. So saying something's better than something else it's actually a joke. It's something I do in the studio. I was just making this record with this band. I'm doing a second record with this band, the Warhawks from New Jersey. We were recording it last month, and I have this joke where if somebody does a take and they say, somebody's like, "Oh, that was awesome," I say, "I've heard better." And the reason that that is so funny to me is because you've heard better what? You've heard a better take of that song? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there isn't better in this situation, right? So that's where I sit on that.
I could not agree with you more. But Starflyer is better than Upside Down Room. So, and Leave Here a Stranger is a treasure.
Well, Lee, the same guy that got that question through Jared, I mean, he made a good point. He said his two favorite Starflyer albums, you can't even, I mean, Silver and Fashion Focus. He said they're two different bands. They're two different approaches to music, you know?
Well, and that's the way it should be as an artist, is if you're not growing, if you're not changing, to go back what Aaron was talking about with his album, he did that. I was the one that I know that I somewhere wrote, what is this bullshit? He's trying to, get younger fans or whatever. But if you're not growing, you're changing, like, what are you doing? So, like, of course he should be trying new music and trying new things and following his
what's funny
intuition.
about that record is that wasn't even new for me. The very first music I ever made was 100% electronic music when I was in 8th grade. Like, it was me going back to my roots, actually. And Old is the best Starflyer record, but that's cool.
That's I'm gonna look forward to listening to Old all the way through.
I mean, I am biased. I produced it, but
let's be real, they have the best band on that record.
Oh,
for sure.
It's Frank Lenz and Richard Swift, and I mean, it's just the dumbest lineup. And but Fashion Focus is such a good record too. I love that record.
Good.
Yeah. Man, hey, this has been so much fun. Gosh, I will I say definitely, but I'm almost positive, Aaron, you're going to be in Nashville, so I'll get to say hey to you then.
I'll be there too.
Oh, sweet. You will be. Awesome. It's very cool. And I don't know if y'all are going to be at TomCon.
I am I'm speaking at TomCon and doing some songs at TomCon. So yeah.
Sweet. So I mean, we may be on
spoiler alert.
I'm helping with a panel, so I'll be able to see you guys there too. What were you going to say, Matthew?
I just said spoiler alert. Nobody's invited me yet, so I won't be there.
Oh, am I not supposed to talk about it? I don't know. I just get emails from Mikey about it.
Yeah. Just between let me push stop.
Episode 6 coming in August.
Don't think there's any room for it, dude. Where I am with God right now is, I would say my relationship with him is as honest as it's ever been. There are certain things for sure that I wish that I was better on. I wish that I was more faithful in. But I feel like it's kind of a miracle that I came out of what I did and I still have any faith at all. And I'm still trying to just kind of go slow with it. Where I'm at with him is that I don't mince words. I don't have any interest in thinking I'm going to put on a brave face for Jesus. If God is who we have always said he was, then he knows exactly what's going on in your heart. And if you want to front and you want to put on a bold face, you are quite literally fooling yourself. And it's nonsense. What are you even doing?
It's the legend himself. You heard of the crucified, stave-sake heir? We get really serious and real deep with Mark Solomon.
Anything that you want to know beforehand?
No.
Sweet.
Well,
probably not anything you have the answer to.
I don't know how to take that, man.
What's the meaning of life?